Part 5. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 41. Everyone was very shocked. When they first entered, they already felt that it was extraordinary. Now they saw with their own eyes that the immortal tribulation light would disappear directly even when it came close to the palace, which made everyone even more stunned. What, exactly is this treasure? A real fairy weapon, a real fairy weapon. Everyone murmured. In Xuanhuan realm, almost no one has ever seen a real immortal weapon. Because once a quasi-immortal becomes an immortal, he will soon leave the Xuanhuan realm and enter the immortal realm. However, everyone was sure immediately that the grade of this palace must be at least the immortal level. Only the immortal level can withstand the tribulation of immortality. Miss Ling I dare to ask this, which senior gave this divine object? Luo Ming asked Huo Linger solemnly. Huo Linger nodded and said, this is just a wooden palace carved by Senior Li. Everyone, we can go out. Everyone immediately walked out of the palace. Then Huo Linger thought about it and turned the extremely grand shrine into a palm-sized wooden sculpture. It looked simple and majestic, and very magical. When everyone saw this, their faces were shocked. I have long heard that behind the Fire Nation, there is a being beyond the Supreme. Now that I have seen it, it is indeed true. A wooden sculpture he carved has such power? It's terrible. Has such a being become an immortal? Many people spoke with awe. After all, among the many supreme beings, only Luo Ming and Hongxian have really come into contact with Li Fan. As for Luo Ming and Hongxian, listening to the words around them, they even smiled bitterly. Immortal? That person can kill immortals without even using his hands. But they didn't say much. Now, Senior Li is already a taboo-like existence in their eyes. Don't dare to mention it easily. Where did you get that shrine? At this time, a cold voice suddenly sounded. Everyone hurriedly turned around, only to see a white-haired woman appearing next to everyone. The woman's aura was extremely cold, her face was as beautiful as ice, and her eyes were like an icy lake, as if she could see through all the illusions. She approached silently, and no one present felt it. Who is she? What a terrifying aura, how can it be so powerful? Why do I feel that she is no weaker than that evil god? Everyone spoke unexpectedly. Supreme Yuan Yang even took a breath of air and said, quasi-immortal. Quasi-immortal. Everyone's expressions changed drastically. Above the Supreme is the quasi-immortal. All he has to do is get the baptism of immortality to become an immortal. This is definitely the most powerful existence. There are only a few of them in the entire Xuanhuan realm, and almost all of them are legendary existences. Now, one actually appeared. This thing is a gift from a senior. Huo Linger spoke with a little fear. She was facing a quasi-immortal. Even the venerable can kill the opponent with just a snap of his fingers, right? Can you give me a look? The white-haired woman asked. No, this is an immortal weapon. Luo Ming whispered in Huo Linger's ear. This Lishan palace is a real treasure, how can it be easily shown to others? But Huo Linger hesitated. Facing a quasi-immortal, if he refused, would the other party take action? Don't worry, I don't have the guts to offend the owner of this artifact yet. At this time, the white-haired woman spoke. Hearing this, Huo Linger immediately felt certain. Yes. This is something given by Senior Li, so what if he is a quasi-immortal? If you covet this thing, you will probably get yourself into big trouble. She immediately handed the wooden carving out. The white-haired woman took it and observed it for a long time. There was a look of reverence on her face. The more she looked, the more solemn her expression became. Why? Finally, she let out a long sigh, returned the wooden sculpture to Huo Linger, and said, such an immortal relationship is really enviable. Keep it safe. Huo Linger also breathed a sigh of relief after taking back the wood carving. Climbing the immortal platform is a great opportunity, but there is also a great danger. I originally wanted to persuade you to retreat, but since there are experts behind me, I think I won't go wrong. The white-haired woman glanced at everyone and said, if there is a chance, after becoming an immortal, I will visit the owner of the wood carving. After saying that, her figure disappeared on the spot. The next moment, she had appeared at the other end of the Supreme Cemetery, in front of the immortal platform. Let's go too. We can also get the opportunity of immortality. Deng Xiande is quiet now, we can get closer. Ling Chao Supreme and others also spoke one after another. Immediately, everyone approached the immortal platform. The immortal tribulation light has just erupted, and now it seems to have fallen into silence. Soon, they also crossed the Supreme Cemetery. Appeared outside the colorful light curtain. In the light curtain, a white jade stone staircase continues to extend upwards, and it is unknown where it connects. It's like reaching straight to heaven. This is the road to the fairyland. Can we enter the fairyland? This is a great opportunity. Everyone spoke one after another, very excited. And the evil god and his 8 subordinates who had arrived here before them actually stopped and did not move rashly. There's a scam here. The evil god suddenly looked at the white-haired woman. The white-haired woman glanced at Deng Xiantai and said indifferently, so what if it's a scam? On the immortal platform, you will escape death. She turned her head, suddenly looked at Huo Linger, and said, my name is Zhang Shui. Please tell that senior that I am willing to be their pioneer. After saying that, she stepped into the light curtain. Instantly, colorful light enveloped her. Baptized by colorful light, a majestic aura of immortality burst out. Became an immortal. Is this how an immortal was born? God, this is too scary. Is this the breath of an immortal? Everyone was very shocked. Luo Ming and Hong Xian also had shocked expressions on their faces. Before, they had felt the power of the Xia demon to burn the demon soul and erupt into the immortal way. But now it seems that it is not the real immortal way at all, it is very far away. The real immortal way is almost trembling. Even many supreme beings felt like they wanted to worship him at this moment. I've really become an immortal, I've become an immortal. Even though it was the evil god Yin Xiaokong, his green eyes were flashing with excitement at this moment. His previous vigilance had been overwhelmed by the temptation of becoming an immortal. He no longer hesitated and stepped into the light curtain. Suddenly, the colorful immortal aura enveloped him, and the evil and strange aura on his body dissipated rapidly and became sacred. The immortal way can purify everything. Even evil gods can become immortals. Is this the path to immortality opening up? No one was shocked. Even the 8 demon generals who followed the evil god were entering in one step at this moment. Later, they also received the baptism of immortality. Supreme can do it too. Walk. This is the greatest opportunity in thousands of years. The supreme powers from Taiyan Holy Land, Xiang Holy Land and other forces could no longer bear it at this moment and stepped into it one after another. The baptism of immortality, my life has been re-energized. An old supreme being, who was about to turn into dust, exclaimed in surprise. His white hair turned black, his old skin faded away, and he became heroic, reappearing what he looked like in his heyday. Qualitative leap, it turns out that this is the way of immortality, this is the way of immortality. There was a supreme being murmuring, feeling the difference in the avenue. For a time, almost all the supreme beings entered. Even Ling Chao Supreme, Yuan Yang Supreme, etc. all entered. What should we do? Do we want to go in? Mu Jianing looked at this scene, her beautiful eyes filled with yearning. This is becoming an immortal. Huo Linger nodded and said, let's go. They also stepped right into it. The breath of immortality baptized everyone. Mu Jianing, Huo Linger and others are not at a high level and have not even reached the Mahayana stage, but now they are soaring. The state of distraction. Dongxu realm. The realm of Dongxu is perfect. Mahayana realm. Their cultivation level is improving at a terrifying speed. I have become an immortal and can enter the immortal realm. The evil god laughed wildly as he stepped onto the white jade steps. At this moment, suddenly, a terrifying aura came. The gorgeous colorful light suddenly disappeared. The fish is in the net, it's time to close it. An indifferent voice suddenly sounded from the end of the immortal platform. In an instant, the expressions of everyone below changed drastically. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 42. Just when all the supreme beings had entered the light curtain and received the baptism of immortality, such a sudden change occurred. For a moment, the sacred seven-colored light around the immortal platform completely disappeared, and a cold aura enveloped it. Above the sky, a terrifying aura suddenly appeared, and a powerful figure appeared in the clouds. It was a middle-aged man with gray hair, sitting cross-legged on the clouds, looking down at the countless supreme beings below. He was wearing a black robe hanging down, like the Lord above the nine heavens. Around him, the aura of immortality lingered. Who is this? The aura of immortality, this is an immortal. Why did an immortal appear here? Who is he? What is his purpose? Everyone looked at the existence on the cloud in shock. The being above the clouds looked down indifferently at the moment, with a slight sneer on the corner of his mouth. All the quasi-immortals and supreme beings in the southern territory are here, and the Dao foundation of this territory will be eliminated from now on. His cold voice was very loud. He raised his hand, and suddenly all the supreme beings below felt a great terror. They all vomited blood. No. Why can't I control all my spiritual power? My vitality is severely damaged. No, the fairy energy I just breathed into my body is reducing my Taoism. This is not fairy energy at all. What on earth is this? For a moment, all the supreme beings were frightened. The fairy spirit they had greedily inhaled just now was now frantically destroying their vitality. The road base was destroyed. No. How is this possible with my supreme cultivation? A supreme's expression changed drastically, his cultivation level had dropped to the level of a supreme. One who has merged with the nine heavens can be called the supreme, and those who have merged with the nine heavens and below can be called the venerable. But, something more terrifying happened immediately. After falling to the realm of sages, there was actually a supreme being who fell to the realm of Mahayana. No. I'm not willing to give in, I'm not willing to give in. My Dao foundation is shattered, my cultivation level. What kind of devil's curse is this? No. Everyone is wailing, so what about the Supreme? What about the Holy Lord? At this time, everyone is experiencing pain. The light just now did not come from the immortal platform at all, but was a trap deliberately set. There was a trace of blood at the corner of the white-haired woman's mouth. How is this possible? No. No. Who are you? You are poisoning us. Even the evil god looked at the existence in the clouds with eyes split open and horrified. Even he, who had already stepped into the immortal path with half his foot, could not bear this kind of erosion at this moment. Poison? Just a swarm of ants. The being sitting cross-legged in the clouds spoke coldly. He looked at a certain place in the sky and said, "When all the ants in this world turn into my puppets, the world tree will turn into a rootless thing. It will be easy to obtain, haha." A deep look flashed in his eyes. Below, there was a cry. The white-haired woman also spat out a mouthful of blood. She looked at the sky and shouted, "The immortal platform was set up by the immortal realm. If you mess around here, aren't you afraid of the immortal realm's wrath?" After saying that, she suddenly took out a jade bottle, and in the jade bottle, there was a drop of crystal blood. That is the blood of immortals. Immortal blood reaches the sky. With a low roar, she smashed the jade bottle onto the immortal platform. Immediately upon reaching the immortal platform, the fairy light flashes. The real immortal platform has been awakened. Boom boom. The immortal power is mighty, like a giant dragon resurrecting. Above the sky, time and space seem to be changing at this moment. In the sky, the boundary wall gradually appeared. It was an invisible chasm. At the other end of the boundary wall, a figure appeared at this moment, who alerted the lower realms to ascend to the immortal platform. A cold voice came out. In an instant, all the supreme beings below the immortal platform were excited. This is an existence in the fairyland. The existence in the immortal realm has sensed this place. The immortal realm will not let this person do anything wrong. Shangxian, please save me. Countless supreme beings shouted loudly. The being behind the boundary wall, his eyes were like lightning, scanning the bottom, and he was even more surprised when he saw the being sitting cross-legged in the clouds. This person set up a killing trap at the immortal platform to murder us. Please ask the immortal realm to uphold justice. The white-haired woman shouted loudly. Her cultivation was also declining, but her voice could still be transmitted through the boundary wall. Behind the boundary wall, the figure stared at the existence on the cloud and said in a deep voice, "Who are you? How dare you set up a killing trap at my Zhongdeng immortal platform? Do you want to challenge the immortal realm?" The words were full of anger. The being sitting cross-legged above the cloud sneered. "Challenge the immortal realm? Haha, what is the immortal realm? It is just a tool for a small sect on the edge of the immortal realm to select disciples. Is it worthy of the immortal realm?" He calmly told a secret. The being behind the boundary wall was instantly furious. "I want to see who you are." As the voice from behind the boundary wall fell, suddenly, a figure crossed the boundary wall and appeared in Fangtianyu. Coming across the border. The aura was very powerful. It was a middle-aged man in a blue robe. He stared at the existence above the clouds and said, "Grant you death." After saying that, he raised his palm, driving the endless wind and clouds, and blasted towards the existence above the clouds. Big palms formed by a single blow of spiritual energy appeared in the sky, and the overwhelming aura of fairy spirits caused countless supreme beings below to kneel down. However, the being sitting cross-legged on the cloud just sneered and said, "How dare you be so arrogant as a projection of a little human being?" He snapped his fingers. In an instant, the palm with endless power suddenly disappeared. The expression of the immortal in blue robe changed greatly, and he said, "No. A true immortal." He turned around and was about to run away, but as soon as he took a step, his body completely collapsed and turned into rays of fairy light, which dissipated on the spot. Puff. Behind the boundary wall, a certain being suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. "Don't be so arrogant. Do you think there are no true immortals in our sect? Please invite the sect master." The existence behind the boundary wall roared and called for people. Not long after, a figure appeared behind the boundary wall. A pair of lightning-like eyes passed through the boundary wall and landed on the being above the clouds. "Why are you messing around in our sect's Dengxian terrace and attacking our sect?" A majestic voice sounded. However, the existence above the cloud sneered and said, "You and I are in the realm of true immortals. The most you can project is one clone, so you are not qualified to talk to me. Roll. Scold directly." There was silence on the other side of the boundary wall. Because what the beings above the clouds say is true. The strong men in the immortal realm have to pay a heavy price if they want to cross the realm wall. And the projection is no match for this cloud. Sect master, give up on these ants in the lower realm. The price is too high. Yes, one less realm to recruit disciples is nothing. If we really fight across borders, we can't afford it. Behind the boundary wall, the voices of the immortals were faintly heard. Seeing this scene, everyone in the Xiantian realm below was completely desperate. It's over. Even the beings in the fairyland can't stop it? Are you and others, all destined to die? I don't want to die. Why did a generation of immortals use such insidious tricks on us? The inheritance of the southern territory can be said to have been cut off from now on, the quasi-immortals are dead, and the supreme being has been lost. God, how can such evil people become immortals? They were roaring and crying. The evil god could no longer bear it and fell to the ground, vomiting blood and falling from his realm. The white-haired woman's face was extremely pale. She was extremely weak, but she turned to look at Huo. Both Immortal Realm and Black Hand have appeared, who, still won't take action. She spoke. Luo Ming, Hongxian, and others also looked at Huo and others. All the supreme beings and quasi-immortals at the scene were destroyed by the fairy spirit that they had just inhaled into their bodies, but Huo and Mu Qianing were unscathed. At first, Yukishui vomited blood, but Huo immediately gave Yukishui Lishan Palace, and the fairy spirit energy in Yukishui's body was immediately suppressed. Therefore, the three of them are now the unharmed people in the field. Huo watched the immortal appear back and forth, and was already extremely shocked. When he heard the white-haired woman's words, he immediately reacted, took a step forward, and said, "Senior Li, you have been prepared." After saying that, a roll of paper suddenly appeared in her hand. She slowly opened the paper. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 43. Huo stepped forward, her expression was so calm, surpassing all the quasi-immortals and supreme beings in the field, and finally opened the paper in her hand. When the paper was slowly opened, the paper left her hand and flew up into the sky on its own. The paper slowly opened, and in an instant, everyone had an illusion, as if the sea was flowing across the sea, and the prehistoric times were reappearing. A monstrous sword intent suddenly spread thousands of miles across the sky, and its invincible power made the entire sky tremble. 1. The first word appears. Boom. In an instant, countless clouds burst apart in the sky, turning into ruins all over the sky. The true immortal level being sitting on the cloud had a look of horror in his eyes at this moment, and the immortal cloud under him also collapsed. He himself was forced to fall rapidly by the terrifying sword intent. When this word appeared, the sky could no longer accommodate any existence. Thousands of miles of clouds collapsed, and even the true immortals had to retreat. He fell rapidly, and finally landed on the ground of the Kangli Mountains. He looked up to the sky, but his whole person was stunned. Sword. The second word appears. Boom boom boom. The sky exploded, and with this word as the center, the sword intent burst out, directly penetrating a space of 90,000 miles. At this moment, the entire sky in the southern territory felt as if a peerless sword had slashed through it. Thousands of clouds collapsed, and hundreds of millions of creatures could not help but tremble and look at the sky. The sky is invisible, but everyone feels it in their hearts, as if an ancient divine sword is displayed across the sky in the entire southern territory. In an instant, the entire southern territory was boiling and shocked. Countless sects were shocked. Somewhere in the southern territory, the holy land of the three absolutes, which had raised a holy war army, suddenly stopped. The sect leader and a group of supreme beings, feeling the sword intent coming from the sky, were all trembling and dumbfounded. And at this moment, above the immortal platform, press. The third word appears. Bang bang bang. 90,000 miles of sky, from top to bottom, the terrifying sword intent seems to have turned into a Milky Way falling from the 9 heavens, rushing forward and unable to stop it. Thump! Thump thump! All the supreme beings and quasi-immortals below who were looking up at this painting could not help but kneel down at this moment. He was lying on the ground, his body was trembling, as if he was a tiny ant, suddenly feeling the power of the ancient dragon. How can this be? The true immortal stood among countless supreme cemeteries. His figure that originally looked upright was now playing, as if he was bearing the weight of tens of millions of kilograms. I am a true immortal, who can make me kneel down? He gritted his teeth, but the next moment, the sword intent came with a bang, and his knees shattered with a pop, and he knelt in the cemetery. In the meantime, the blood of the true immortal dyed the soil under his feet red. No. He raised his eyes with difficulty, his eyes were filled with despair. What kind of existence is this and how powerful it is? Even the true immortal had to kneel down. In the face of such power, even a true immortal has no right to resist. Sky. The fourth word appears. The sword intent was shocking, and with the appearance of this word, the immortal platform was broken inch by inch, turned into powder, and ceased to exist. The shocking sword intent suddenly landed on the boundary wall, and the entire boundary wall suddenly dissipated. This sword cuts through the boundary wall. A corner of the immortal realm appears before the eyes of the world in an unprecedented manner. It is a world shrouded in clouds and mist, in which there are countless immortal palaces, billions of acres of land, divine kingdoms and palaces. However, under this sword, the immortal palace trembled, the kingdom of God was shaken, and the palace was shattered. No. What kind of existential decree is this? No. Behind the boundary wall, the true immortal sect master of that sect shouted in horror. You could see that they also knelt down and prostrate on the ground. South. The last word appeared, and the boundless sword intent pointed directly towards the south of the immortal realm. Wherever it passed, the space turned into black and ceased to exist, just like a trail of flames left by a meteor. Above the sky, only the 5 characters stand proudly. One sword suppresses the whole world. Each stroke of the 5 characters exudes a world-shattering sword intent, reaching up to the sky, reaching down into the 9 netherworlds, breaking through the boundary wall, and crushing the immortal realm. The mighty sword energy swept away all evil spirits. Ah! The evil god was prostrate on the ground, but his body directly disintegrated under the overwhelming pressure of the great avenue. His soul is completely destroyed. The 8 demon generals behind him exploded to pieces. Even the true immortal kneeling in the supreme cemetery had despair in his eyes. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end he didn't say it, and his whole body exploded into blood mist. The blood of the true immortal is stained all over the supreme cemetery. In the entire Kangli mountain range, the remaining ghosts have been extinct at this moment, and the dark atmosphere has directly dissipated. Heaven and earth are vast. A sword crushes the sky. The world prostrates itself. The immortal trembled. Now. The vast and boundless fairyland. The southern border of the fairyland. This is the Shura field, a killing ground, where immortals and demons fight decisively. The immortals are crying, the devils are roaring, and the evil atmosphere corrodes the spirit of the immortals. Since 100 years ago, a generation of demon kings walked out of the forbidden land of the Sea of Dead Souls and returned to the fairyland. His demonic soldiers spread all over the southern border of the fairyland. Over the past 100 years, golden immortals have died, and black immortals and true immortals have been trampled like ants. At this moment, on a certain ancient fairy city, the desperate fairy guards looked at the endless demonic shadows in front of them and were ready to give up the fight. No immortal king is willing to support southern Xinjiang. The person responsible for guarding the city is a golden immortal. The immortal sword in his hand has many gaps, and there are only a few hundred people left behind him. Everyone's body is stained with demon blood. Their expressions were all desperate. The people of the southern border of the immortal territory are about to turn into the devil's blood food, but the superior immortal lords and immortal kings turn a blind eye to this, just because my generation of swordsmen immortal kings in the southern territory defeated them all. A trace of blood overflowed from the corner of Jinxian's mouth, and tears fell from his eyes. He raised his fairy sword and cried out sadly. Wuji immortal king, your people are now being massacred by demons. Why haven't you come back yet? Why haven't you come back yet? His tears were cold. Behind him, 300 immortal soldiers roared. They are calling for the fairy king of the past. The immortal king who once conquered the immortal realm. The immortal king who once made southern border stand at the top of the entire immortal realm. However, there was no response. Between heaven and earth, there is only the triumphant roar of the devil. Jinxian was silent. He looked ahead and saw the demonic shadow devouring the baby, the skeleton riding the undead war horse, and using a bone knife to cut open the belly of the pregnant woman. Kill. He raised the broken sword to launch the last charge. In the devil's camp, a huge devil's hand has pressed over overwhelmingly. Jinxian could feel the demon general coming from a Tai Jinxian level. He knew that he and the 30 million southern border people in the city behind him would all die under this palm. However, he roared and charged forward. But, just at this moment, a huge sword intent that seemed to come from the other side of time and space suddenly covered the sky in southern Xinjiang. That sword intent made the people of southern Xinjiang tremble and the immortals shocked. At this moment, everyone in southern Xinjiang looked stupidly at that terrifying sword intent. The sword intent swept over and cut into the devil's camp. The picture was so horrifying that it made people deaf for a moment. In the eyes of the world, they could only see the terrifying devil camp, as if it had turned into pieces of paper, turning into powder. Wherever it passed, there was only a vacuum, and the devil's body could not leave even a drop of demon blood and evaporated directly. Even demon generals at the Tai Golden Immortal level were turned into dust under the sword's wool. The billions of land that were taken away by the devil turned into a bright sky under the advancement of this sword. All this, the people in the southern region of Xiantian realm have no way of knowing. Countless supreme beings knelt on the ground, above the immortal realm, and the immortals of King Hua sect were even more prostrate and trembling. They all felt like a century had passed. Until a long, long time later. It's like an ancient divine sword that was born. After searching all over the world and finding no rivals, it was sheathed sadly. The paper rolled up automatically. Fall. In an instant, the sword intent between heaven and earth dissipated. The boundary wall slowly revived and reappeared at this moment. But both worlds were speechless at this moment, as if everything in the world had lost their voice. The whole world seems so quiet. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 44. The world was extremely quiet. The calligraphy that shocked the Juxiao immortal realm and oppressed the entire Xiantian realm had slowly fallen and returned to Huo Linger's hands. However, countless supreme beings around them were still kneeling on the ground and could not get up for a long time. They have been completely conquered. Huo Linger held the calligraphy in her hand, her beautiful eyes full of complexity. What level did this piece of calligraphy reach? Senior Li. What kind of existence is he? Previously, they thought that Senior Li was a transcendent being, and that a painting could kill the demon lord. But now, Senior Li's calligraphy has made the immortals bleed. In the Supreme Cemetery, the quasi-immortals knelt down and worshipped, and the Supreme prostrate. I and others simply cannot imagine the realm of Senior Li. This is just a piece of calligraphy by Senior Li. Mu Jianing murmured, looking up at the nine heavens. There is the immortal land that many cultivators in the Xiantian realm dream of. Entering it means truly stepping into the immortal way. In the entire Xiantian realm, only a handful of people have been able to enter it throughout the ages. But now, a piece of calligraphy can break through the boundary wall. This is too scary. Gradually, the supreme beings kneeling on the ground gradually came back to their senses. The cold wind blew by, allowing them to feel the real world. Goddess, a true goddess. There was a supreme being who looked at Huo Ling, his eyes full of worship. The messenger of the supreme being, behind the Fire Nation, is actually such a terrifying figure. It's so scary. When did such an existence appear in Xiantian realm? Everyone had complicated expressions. Luo Ming and Hong Xian looked at the painting in Huo Ling's hand and fell to the ground with admiration in their hearts. Originally, we thought that Senior Li was a powerful immortal. Now it seems that his identity is beyond our imagination. Even the true immortals and the sects in the immortal realm must submit to his calligraphy. Luo Ming was completely worshipped in his eyes. Senior Li is definitely a big shot in the immortal world. He can penetrate the boundary wall, this is rare even in immortal legends. Hong Xian also spoke, but he was afraid just thinking about it. Fortunately, their Taiyan Holy Land is on the side of the senior. Now it seems that we have far underestimated this big man behind the Fire Nation. The Holy Lord of Taiyan Holy Land, the Spirit Super Supreme, gave a wry smile, looked at Yuan Yang Supreme, and said, even if we and the Patriarch of the Holy Land reappear, I'm afraid, we will have to stay away. For the Holy Land, their ancestors are their faith and their pride. Now, he said such words, which showed how shocked he was. Such a being must come from the immortal realm, and we are just pawns in his hands. Supreme Yuan Yang spoke with an extremely solemn expression. He was speculating at the moment. He looked at the pool of true immortal blood that dyed the earth red in the Supreme Cemetery and said, obviously, someone is plotting against the entire Southern Territory, and even the entire Xian dynasty skyline. But none of this escaped the eyes of that being. Therefore, he gave the dragon gathering map of 10,000 mountains so that we can enter it, fish out the true immortal behind it, and kill him in one fell swoop. What a big situation, what a big spirit, the Holy Land is your son, and the true immortal will be killed. His tone was filled with trembling. What's funny is that before, we thought that the senior's target was the evil god. Now, looking at it, the so-called evil god is simply a grass on the roadside to that senior. No, even a grass is counted. Not on. The Supreme Ling Chao smiled bitterly. Looking back now, their initial judgment of this senior was simply ridiculous to the extreme. The other party's level is simply something they cannot look up to at their level. All the supreme beings were shocked and at the same time overjoyed. The chaotic spiritual power in my body has disappeared, and my strength is recovering. That calligraphy has the supreme power to suppress all evil. When a true immortal dies, the spiritual power he left behind will naturally disappear. The fear of falling in one's realm and being unable to control oneself just now was completely eliminated at this moment. The true immortal was killed, the sword broke through the immortal realm. What kind of existence is the senior? What an admirable courage! The white-haired woman also murmured. She turned her head and looked at Huo Ling and said, can you introduce me to the senior? His expression was very solemn. When Huo Ling heard this, she was slightly startled. This woman was a quasi-immortal. He is regarded as the top figure in the entire Xiantian realm. Now I also want to meet Senior Li. If possible, we would also like to meet the senior, but please give us a chance, three of you. At this time, Supreme Ling Chao and Supreme Yuan Yang also spoke to Huo Ling and the others. They all looked very respectful. Although Yu Qishui, Mu Jianing, and others are not in the Mahayana realm now, they dare not be disrespectful because the person behind Mu Jianing is that senior. Huo Ling looked at Yu Qishui and Mu Jianing, with a hint of hesitation in his eyes. Jianing, what do you think? Yu Qishui was also unsure and looked at Mu Jianing. In fact, it was Mu Jianing who gained Senior Li's favor in the first place. Even Huo Ling although she had received many rewards from Senior Li, knew very well that without Mu Jianing, all of this would have been impossible. Mu Jianing thought for a moment, then shook her head and said, Senior Li likes to be quiet and live a mortal life. I think he doesn't want to be disturbed. However, we can first ask Senior Li what he means. Hearing this, Huolinger and Yukishui both nodded, this is best. Seniors, we can't make the decision. We need to ask that senior first. Yukishui spoke. But everyone nodded and said, of course, that senior is such a person, we will just wait. Not the slightest bit displeased. Even the white-haired woman didn't say anything, but her eyes were slightly disappointed. Everyone, what happened here is that we should leave. At this time, Ling Chao Supreme spoke. The immortal platform has been destroyed, a killing situation has been solved, and everyone is a little relaxed. Then they all turned around and started to leave. By the way, the blood of the true immortal in this place is a peerless treasure. At this time, Yuzhizun opened his mouth, with an eager look in his eyes. Supreme Yuan Yang and Supreme Ling Chao looked at each other. They both looked at Mu Jianing respectfully and said, girl, can we take this thing? For everything, you have to ask the senior messenger first. Mu Jianing waved her hands quickly and said, seniors, you can do whatever you want. Hearing this, the two holy masters were overjoyed. Many supreme beings immediately stepped forward and carefully collected the blood of the true immortals. Haha, this is a great opportunity. A drop of true immortal blood can create another holy land. Yes, it can make the perfect supreme realize the immortal way. This is also a blessing given by that being. Everyone is very happy. Senior, don't you charge some? At this time, Mu Jianing looked at the white-haired woman in confusion. This is a quasi-immortal. If he gets the blood of a true immortal, maybe he can become an immortal directly, right? However, the woman shook her head, looked at the calligraphy in Huolinger's hand, and said, I have seen the true supreme immortal way, and the rest of the ways are all ashes. They are all ashes. Mu Jianing instantly understood that this quasi-immortal was determined to meet Senior Li. She didn't even care about the blood of a true immortal. While everyone was collecting true immortal blood, a tomb suddenly opened and two rays of light suddenly flew towards Mu Jianing and others. What? Protect these holy envoys. Everyone hurriedly scolded them, and even the Supreme One hurriedly stood in front of Huolinger and others, fearing that they would be hurt. However, the two rays of light hung in front of them and became still. It was a simple lyre and a mottled writing brush. A piano and a pen. But it exudes an ancient atmosphere. This. Everyone was surprised. Sanju's piano and pen. But it was the white-haired woman who spoke and sighed slightly. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. 3 unique instruments and pens. 3 Ju, are actually the piano and pen of Sanju Immortal. Legend has it that after Sanju Immortal became an immortal, he did not bring the immortal artifacts into the immortal realm, but left them in the Xiantian realm for future generations. I didn't expect it. Real. These are 2 immortal weapons, they are too terrifying. No wonder the Sanju Holy Land in Zhongzhou wants to raise troops to come to the southern region. Why did the immortal weapon of the 3 ultimate immortals suddenly appear? Could it be that it was a treasure-seeking shelter? Everyone was shocked. These were 2 immortal artifacts. If spread, the entire Xiantian world would be shaken. If the Sanju Holy Land was obtained, it is very likely that several more immortals would be created. You must know that the 3 wonders of the immortal are known as the 3 masters of the harp, calligraphy, and painting. Each stroke of the harp is the embodiment of his immortality and contains the secret of the immortality. At the same time, they were also guessing why the 2 immortal weapons suddenly appeared. Obviously, this is just the treasure-seeking shelter. The Ling Chao Supreme sighed and said, in the entire Xiantian realm, the only one who can automatically follow and attach psychic immortal weapons is that senior. Everyone looks very complicated. How many people have broken their heads to fight for a treasure that they can't even ask for, but they actually take the initiative to follow others? Master, what should we do? Mu Jianing asked Yukishui. Yukishui hesitated for a moment and said, put it away first and present it to Senior Li. Huo Linger and Mu Jianing both nodded, and they immediately stepped forward, waved slightly, and took the two treasures into their hands. Although the eyes of many supreme beings are somewhat fiery, no one dares to covet him. What a joke, even the true immortal is dead, who dares to seek death without opening his eyes? After the two immortal artifacts were collected, everyone turned around and continued to collect the blood of the true immortals. Not even a drop was left. Then, everyone left the Kangli Mountains in a mighty manner. And at this time, an army that covers the sky and the sun is approaching the Kangli Mountains. Among the army, the holy war flag belonging to the three Ju Holy Land was raised high. Majestic. I, the Sanju Holy Land, are here for revenge. Xiao Xiao, the one who harmed our two supreme saints, Tai Ming and Shi Tai, get out and die. The voice of a supreme being spread throughout the earth. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 45. The Holy War Army of the Sanju Holy Land has advanced to the outskirts of the Kangli Mountains. Looking at the collapsed Kangli Mountains in front of them, everyone's face was filled with a look of eagerness to move. The immortal artifacts left by the ancestors are in this mountain range. As long as we can get it, we will create supreme glory again, and the entire Xiantian world will be the only one respected by us. I cannot wait any more. At the forefront of the Holy War Army are the 7 supreme beings. The Holy Lord's eldest grandson, Liancheng, stood in front of the 7 supreme beings with a sneer full of ambition in his eyes. The shocking sword intent that appeared before might have been emitted by the ancestor's immortal weapon. You must know that the ancestor once understood the supreme swordsmanship from calligraphy. Only he dares to possess such terrifying sword power. He spoke. Hearing this, the 6 supreme beings behind him all nodded, wanting even more to get the relics of the Sanju immortal as soon as possible. Spread the word and announce our arrival to all the beings in the Kangli Mountains. The eldest grandson Liancheng spoke coldly. Immediately, the supreme being shouted. I, the Sanju Holy Land, are here for revenge. Xiao Xiao, the one who harmed our 2 supreme saints, Tai Ming and Shi Tai, get out and die. This is their flag and their reason for sending troops. Now that we are in front of the Kangli mountain range, we naturally have to let him go. Move towards the Kangli Mountains. After the news came out, Chang Sun Liancheng waved his hand and moved on. They have gradually approached the small mountain village where Li Fan is located. And at this moment, we have received great kindness from Senior Li, and it would be rude if we could not express our gratitude. I would trouble a few holy envoys to convey the message on my behalf. After walking out of the Kangli Mountains, before leaving, Ling Chao Supreme and others spoke again. Their eyes were full of respect and enthusiasm. That is an existence that can kill a true immortal. Being able to meet him once in a lifetime is an unimaginable fate. We know that we must not disturb the senior's spiritual practice, so everyone else is waiting 10 miles away from the senior's spiritual practice. Yuan Yang Supreme is also the Tao. The white-haired woman looked at Mu Jianing. This made Mu Jianing hesitate immediately. She couldn't make up her mind. Maybe Senior Li still needs them. Let nature take its course. Just lead a few of them into the village. If Senior Li doesn't see them, they can just leave. Yukishui spoke. Mu Jianing said immediately, okay, then please come with me. Immediately, the rest of the Supremes and their men stopped 10 miles outside the small mountain village. Mu Jianing and 3 other people went there with the white-haired woman and the 2 holy masters. Entered the small mountain village. The Kangli mountain range has collapsed, but this place is so peaceful and quiet without being disturbed at all. It's really magical. The Supreme Ling Chao spoke in admiration. This is a place where the peerless power lives in seclusion. I have vaguely felt the countless principles contained in the tranquility of this place. Yuan Yang Supreme is also very dignified. The white-haired woman's cold eyes swept over the grass and trees in the mountain village, and her beautiful eyes suddenly showed a trace of yearning. Ordinary mountain people working in the fields. A young child with yellow hair plays by the roadside. An old man sunbathing in the courtyard. They all convey a rare sense of tranquility and peace. Although he is immortal, he has opportunities and happiness that even immortals cannot long for. She murmured enviously. Not long after, several people finally arrived in front of Li Fan's courtyard. Wuorxianting. The plaque written by Li Fan himself appeared in the eyes of several people, and they were all shocked. These 4 words contain this completely different way of swordsmanship. Ling Chao Supreme murmured. Different from the unparalleled and powerful one in the fairyland of one sword conquering the whole world, what is reflected in these 4 words is an ultimate freedom and carefreeness, as if it has jumped out of time and space. Mysterious and difficult to understand. For the great power who lives in seclusion, this is just a leisurely garden, but to the world, it is a terrifying world. The white-haired woman's eyes were shining with brilliance. At this moment, she felt more and more that her previous choice was extremely wise. The blood of a true immortal, even if you can become an immortal with it, is like dust compared to the immortality here. Not worth mentioning. Mu Jianing walked forward, knocked on the door and asked, "Is Senior Li here?" In the small courtyard. Zi Ling is painting. In the past few days, she has painted the eggs in front of her hundreds of times. Sure enough, she gradually discovered some rules that she had never noticed before. The eggs in her eyes are no longer the original eggs, which makes her very excited. I am more and more addicted to egg painting. Nanfan was playing the piano, and the sound was soft. Compared to the first time she played, many of the flaws in her sound had disappeared, and it seemed more harmonious. Li Fan had just cut meat and fed it to the cat. When he heard Mu Jianing's voice outside, he immediately said, "Yes, come in." Mu Jianing and Huo Linger walked in immediately. Li Fan smiled, "How is it? Everything goes well. Come to think of it, if they have a piece of calligraphy or a painting of their own, they won't be too bad even if it's a big-scale exhibition or auction." Hearing this, Huo Linger cupped his hands and said respectfully, "Thank you, Senior, for the calligraphy and paintings. Everything went well. In addition, we also got these 2 things, specially brought for the seniors." She and Mu Jianing took out a piano and a pen. Seeing these 2 things, Nanfan and Xiling next to them were shocked. "This is the pen and piano of the ancestor." Xiling was a little dumbfounded. Nanfan even murmured, "The Holy Land has been searching for the treasure for countless years, but has never been able to find it. Now it has been taken out." They all came from the 3 ultimate Holy Land, and inside the 3 ultimate Holy Land, there were no less than dozens of imitations of these 2 immortal weapons, so even if they had never seen them before, they could recognize them at first sight. Li Fan looked at the 2 of them and said, "What's wrong? Do you know each other?" Nanfan nodded and said, "Our ancestor used this piano and this pen. Thousands of years ago, after the ancestor left, we have been looking for this piano and this pen, but there is no news at all. She didn't hide it?" Hearing this, Li Fan immediately understood. "So, this piano and this pen are still antiques that are thousands of years old. Tisk tisk, it should be quite valuable." It seems that Huo Linger and others' business has begun to make money, so in order to thank themselves, because they like playing the piano and calligraphy, they bought thousands of antiques as gifts for themselves. In fact, this is not necessary, because at a glance, Li Fan saw that this so-called antique that was thousands of years old was just average, and the quality were not as good as his own. But after all, it was also the intention of Huo Ling and others, and they happened to have some fate with Nanfeng and Zi Ling. Li Fan said, "In that case, thank you very much." He smiled at Xiling Nanfan and said, "Xiling Nanfan, since these two things are destined for you, just accept them. Anyway, these two things are much better than what Xiling and Nanfan are using now." When Nanfan Xiling heard this, she was instantly shocked. This is for them. These are all fairy weapons. Teacher, isn't that too generous? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 46. When they heard that Li Fan agreed to accept these two artifacts, Huo Ling and Mu Jianing were very happy, thinking that they had finally done something that suits Senior Li's wishes. However, I didn't expect that Li Fan would change hands and give it to Xiling and Nanfan. They were also very surprised. However, thinking about it, they were all relieved. What kind of person is Senior Li? How could he need a mere fairy weapon? It can only be used as a gift to one of the disciples. Thinking of this, they couldn't help but feel envious of Xiling and Nanfan. Although they can also get some sympathy from Senior Li, how can it compare with studying with Senior Li? Being able to follow Senior Li, that is the true supreme immortal way. Thank you, teacher. Nanfan and Xiling both spoke excitedly. They took the pen and piano respectively. After receiving the immortal weapon, they were all in a daze for a moment, unable to imagine. How many troops did the Sanju Holy Land send into the Kangli Mountains? There are countless of them, but in the end, they all failed and fell into the sand, not even a little bit of news was found. Now they get it easily. Following the teacher, many things really become so easy. By the way, senior, there are several seniors outside who are also involved in this matter. They have always come to see you. I wonder if you would like to meet them. At this time, Mu Jianing asked. When Li Fan heard this, he understood instantly. It seems that the calligraphy and paintings given to Huo Ling this time must have attracted some attention at the calligraphy and painting exhibition. Therefore, more people are willing to come. Does this count as gaining popularity? There was also a touch of joy in his heart, and he said, since they are here, please invite them in. Huo Ling immediately bowed and stepped back. 3 of you, Senior Li has agreed to meet you. She spoke to the 3 people waiting outside. Suddenly, the faces of the 3 people showed expressions of joy. This senior is willing to meet you. They all came forward excitedly. Walk into the small courtyard. What a terrifying aura, it seems like everywhere is filled with absolutely terrifying existence, as if I am an ant. Ling Chao Supreme murmured, feeling the faint ocean-like undulations of Taoist rhyme and Taoism. Here, there are so many hidden. Yuan Yang Supreme glanced at it. When he saw the group of native chickens and the goldfish in the pond, he couldn't say a word and was dumbfounded. But the white-haired woman had already stopped in a daze. Her whole body seemed to be lost in thought. The immortal way, the supreme immortal way. Right here. She looked at Li Fan blankly, and suddenly, she knelt on the ground with a plop. Seeing this, Supreme Ling Chao and Supreme Yuan Yang were even more shocked. This is a quasi-immortal, actually kneeling down? What is the origin of this existence? The 2 of them looked at each other and knelt down without any hesitation. Li Fan suddenly became confused. Nima, what kind of rhythm is this? Are you going to kneel down when we meet? These calligraphy and painting lovers are really more exaggerated than the last. Huo Ling and others beside her opened their mouths subconsciously. The identities of these 3 people are all the highest in the entire Xiantian realm, a quasi-immortal and 2 holy masters. He actually knelt down when they met. Their expressions were complicated. Everyone present was very surprised, but Li Fan finally came to his senses and said, "Why be so polite? Please get up quickly." Li Fan's words sounded like a supreme decree to the three of them, as if there was some kind of mysterious power that made them have no choice but to get up. Senior's meritorious service has contributed to the creation of nature. A piece of calligraphy has made us kneel down and worship. Now that I can see you, I will not regret it even if I die. Ling Chao Supreme spoke from the bottom of his heart. It's hard to find someone like Senior in the sky and on earth. I'm lucky enough to meet you. How lucky you are. How lucky you are. Yuan Yang Supreme also spoke. Li Fan smiled and said, "You two are so complimentary. You are just proficient in some small things. How dare you accept such praise?" When they heard this, they both admired him to the extreme. This is the real peerless master who lives in seclusion in the world of mortals, free and easy, humble and easygoing. Even if it is a great avenue that even immortals cannot touch, in the eyes of such a peerless power, it is just a little path. "Senior, can I follow you and listen to your teachings?" At this time, the white-haired woman spoke. For the first time, a look of nervousness and apprehension appeared on her originally stern face. Even though she has been a quasi-immortal for countless years and has become the supreme being in the Xiantian realm, the existence she is facing now is too terrifying and she can only look up, so she can't help but feel nervous. When Li Fan heard this, he frowned slightly. "Why is there another apprentice? I have no such interest. Senior, what happened this time is thanks to her help." In order to come and ask for advice from Senior, she gave up a big opportunity. Mu Jianing couldn't help but speak for the white-haired woman. It was the white-haired woman who entered the immortal platform first and led out the true immortal. After the death of the true immortal, in order to come to see Li Fan, she didn't even take the blood of the true immortal. It can be said that the Taoist heart is very firm. Mu Jianing really couldn't bear her being rejected. Li Fan couldn't help but sigh when he heard this, thinking that he seemed to be crazy. He then said, "I will not accept any more disciples for the time being, but since I am determined to follow your path, I might as well help you clear up a few questions. What do you want to ask?" When the white-haired woman heard this, she felt disappointed, but she was also very excited. She knew that although she couldn't stay with the senior, she still had a rare opportunity. To be able to get answers from such people, what a precious opportunity. What to ask? Be sure to think about it. For a time, countless thoughts flashed through her mind. Seeing her hesitating for a long time, Li Fan smiled and said, "Don't be nervous. We are destined to meet each other. Just ask whatever you want to ask." He could understand this woman's mentality. Before time travel, when he was studying, if he wanted to ask the teacher a question, he had to think twice, for fear that the teacher would think he was a fool. This woman is so obsessed with this, she must be paying more and more attention to it. Hearing this, the woman nodded, took a deep breath, and finally narrowed down the question she cared about most. "I dare to ask Senior, what is immortal?" "Fairy." As soon as this question came up, Supreme Yuan Yang and Supreme Ling Chao became extremely concerned. Li Fan was slightly startled. "Immortal? I am not a practitioner, so how do I know what an immortal is?" However, the other party is definitely not asking about spiritual practice, so it is obviously about the realm beyond calligraphy and painting. Thinking of this, he smiled slightly and said, "Immortals are sentient beings." Everyone's expressions changed and they listened quietly. A blade of grass, a grain of sand, a cicada, they are all immortals. To the naked eye, nature is ordinary everywhere, but the real transcendence, the real immortality, is hidden in the ordinary. If you want to enter the Tao, you must first recognize the ordinary. If you want to understand what white is, you must first understand what black is. If you want to understand what is right, you must first understand what is wrong. So, if you want to understand what immortality is, you have to understand what ordinariness is. He talked freely. In fact, this is why he asked Zi Ling to draw an egg over and over again. See with real eyes and see through the patterns hidden behind ordinary things. Only in this way can one truly enter the Tao, whether it is calligraphy or painting. Hearing this, the woman fell into deep thought. If you want to understand what white is, you have to understand what black is. If you want to understand what immortality is, you have to understand what mortals are. In a daze, she seemed to understand something. Is this the reason why the senior lives in seclusion in the ordinary? Since becoming a quasi-immortal, I have been hiding deep in the mysterious ice, thinking that only in this way can I cultivate a pure and pure immortal heart. Could it be that I am actually going in the opposite direction and taking the wrong path? The more she thought about it, the more she felt that her nearly 1,000 years had been spent in vain. I seem to understand. She murmured, took a deep breath, and said, "Thank you, Senior, for your advice." Li Fan waved his hand and said, "It's just a matter of effort. Everyone, please stop standing. It just so happens that a few new peaches in my courtyard have ripened in the past few days, so I will use this to entertain you." Li Fan smiled. The fruits on the peach tree are already a little ripe, just in time for Huolinger and others to have a try. Everyone looked at the peach tree, but they were all stunned for a moment. Use this peach, to entertain them. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 47. Looking at the peach tree Li Fan mentioned, everyone was dumbfounded for a moment. Is this the peach tree? Ling Chao Supreme murmured, just by taking a glance, he could already feel the extraordinary aura lingering on the peach tree, the fairy air was flowing, and the Taoist charm was growing. Such a treasure only exists in the immortal realm. Do we actually have a chance to taste it? Yuan Yang Supreme couldn't believe it. The white-haired woman was even more stunned. Who is this person? He actually has a peach tree. He must be a big shot from the immortal realm. She had an idea instantly. Huolinger, Mu Jianing, and others had surprised expressions on their faces. This is not the first time that they have received similar gifts from Senior Li. Therefore, they sat down obediently as soon as possible, sitting in rows, waiting for the fruits to be divided. At this time, Li Fan had already stepped forward and picked 3 or 5 large red peaches from the lowered branches of the peach tree. He cut the peach into a plate, brought it to everyone, and said with a smile, "This is a tree planted by my hands. It is the first time this year to bear fruit. I don't know how it tastes. Let's have a taste." Everyone's expressions became more complicated. The peach trees planted by such people with their own hands. If any small piece of fruit pulp or peel on this plate is released to the outside world, it will cause a stir and fight among the big forces. "Thank you, Master." Zi Ling's big eyes were full of smiles, her shiny little tiger teeth were exposed, and she was the first to pick up a piece. Nanfan also thanked him and took it. During this time, they have become accustomed to living such a luxurious life with Li Fan from the poor days before. Anyway, they have experienced so many things like drinking holy spring water and taking holy medicine that they have become numb. When the others saw this, they also took them one by one. Zi Ling's teeth as white as jade bit into the bright red flesh of the fruit, and the sweet juice overflowed. Her big eyes suddenly showed a look of extreme enjoyment. Waves of fairy spirit filled her body, and the fairy spirit washed every inch of her skin. The impurities in the body were evaporated by the fairy spirit. Nanfan, Huolinger, Mu Jianing, etc. all had the same look on their faces. They were extremely enjoying themselves. Supreme Ling Chao and Supreme Yuan Yang were trembling and excited at this moment. Previously, the true immortal used his false fairy spirit to almost enter the realm of immortality, but later the false cultivation finally dissipated. Now, every piece of fruit pulp is filled with fragrant fairy aura. Their cultivation is increasing, and the flaws in their Dao foundation are being made up for. Gradually complete. The two supreme beings gradually reached perfection, and a trace of immortal energy appeared in their bodies. They became quasi-immortals. The two of them opened their eyes and were so excited. From the supreme to the quasi-immortal, this is a natural chasm, a chasm that is difficult to cross. But now, they succeeded. Became the top figure in the entire Xiantian world. Take a step forward, Senior Li has given us such a profound blessing. Ling Chao Supreme burst into tears of gratitude. The amount of fairy energy we can absorb now is very small, a large amount is stored in the body, which can help us become immortals in the future. Yuan Yang Supreme looked even more excited. But at this moment, the white-haired woman still had her eyes closed. Everyone looked at her. The rhyme of the Tao circulates, and the spirit of the immortal spirit evolves into the principles of the Tao, God. She is becoming an immortal. The Supreme Ling Chao was shocked. Everyone was stunned. Is an immortal going to be born today? You must know that there has been no immortal in Xiantian realm for thousands of years. An immortal is a glorious life. If you give a piece of peach at random, you can become an immortal. Everyone sighed again. This Senior Li is really a generous person. A long time later. The white-haired woman opened her eyes. The countless fairy spirits in the peach were absorbed by her, and finally pushed her across the threshold. Now, she has stood tall in the realm of immortality. Immortal. She took a deep breath and knelt down again. Senior, Zhang Shui will never forget such a great kindness. Zhang Shui is her name. Upon hearing this name, the faces of Ling Chao Supreme and Yuan Yang Supreme changed. Unexpectedly, she turned out to be Zhang Shui. Thousands of years ago, there was a supreme power, and a goddess with a special physique appeared, named Zhang Shui. Later, the sect was destroyed, and her whereabouts are unknown. They understood the origin of this white-haired woman. Seeing this, Li Fan waved his hand and said, "Just a few peaches can't bear such a big gift, so get up quickly." Zhang Shui stood up immediately, but her eyes were filled with admiration for Li Fan. Meow meow, meow meow meow. At this time, Bai Xiaoqing ran over and rubbed her head against Li Fan's feet. She was in the room and had just woken up. Li Fan picked up Xiaobai and rubbed Xiaobai's head. Recently, this greedy cat has become more and more sleepy. So lazy. Meow meow, I actually ate a flat peach, wow, how could you not call me? Bai Xiaoqing looked at Pantao longingly, her big eyes lovable. You are a cat, are you still a vegetarian? Li Fan also found it interesting and handed a piece to Xiaobai. Bai Xiaoqing immediately opened her mouth and swallowed it in one gulp. Immediately, she closed her eyes and enjoyed it so much. Enjoying it, she actually fell asleep again. At this moment, almost all the blood in her body had turned into pure gold, and the last trace of variegation disappeared as the fairy spirit entered her body. Pure blood white tiger as your pet. Ling Chao and others saw Bai Xiaoqing's identity. It looks like someone from the northern demon king's lineage, but even if he is from that lineage, it is impossible for him to have such bloodline power. Supreme Yuan Yang murmured. Li Fan hugged Bai Xiaoqing and tasted a few pieces of peaches himself. They tasted really good, juicy, sweet and tender. The hard work of planting trees was not in vain. He was quite comfortable. At this moment, Supreme Yuan Yang hesitated for a moment, then raised his hand and said, "Senior, this matter is over. I wonder if you have any other instructions next." Ling Chao Supreme also said hurriedly, "As long as you give an order, even if it is a knife mountain oil pan, we will never refuse, we will definitely be devastated." Hurry to express your loyalty. Li Fan smiled and said, "You're welcome, there will be many similar things in the future. This is just the beginning. We just need to take more care of Qianning and the others." He had no interest in the ups and downs of the outside world. In fact, he only helped Mu Qianning and others casually. After all, Mu Qianning and others were so miserable before that they were almost reduced to beggars, and Huo Linger's life experience was miserable, which made Li Fan feel sympathy. Hearing this, the expressions of Supreme Ling Chao and Supreme Yuanyang changed drastically. There are many similar things. Does Senior Li mean that the conspiracy against many Supremes and quasi-immortals in the Southern Territory will happen again? They don't just shiver. After all, they still remember the power of the true immortal. Not to mention quasi-immortals, even immortals in the immortal realm can do nothing. If that true immortal has other accomplices, it would be terrible. Senior Li means that if we encounter such a thing in the future, we should communicate with Saint Mu Qianning and the others in time. Yuanyang Supreme said. Supreme Ling Chao nodded and said, "See, the true immortals plot has just begun. Only Senior Li can suppress them." And at this moment, 10 miles away from the small mountain village, the army of the three Zhu Holy Lands in Zhongzhou has arrived. "Fellow Taoists in front, please get out of the way immediately. We want to kill the despicable Xiao Xiao who assassinated the supreme leader of our Holy Land." The army from the Sanzhu Holy Land came in a black mass. In front, they saw Luo Ming, Hongxian, and others waiting for the Southern Territory Allied forces. One of the supreme beings in front of him immediately spoke and expressed his intention to come. On the side of the Southern Territory Allied forces, Luo Ming suddenly frowned. He took out a jade tablet and crushed it immediately. At the same time, in Li Fan's small courtyard, Yuanyang Supreme Husuo felt this and stood up immediately, with a gloomy look in his eyes, saying, "Those blind people from Sanzhu Holy Land are here. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert." Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 48. Sensing the message from Luo Ming dozens of miles away, Supreme Yuanyang suddenly had a cold look in his eyes and said, "Those blind people from the three ultimate Holy Land are here." Hearing this, everyone present looked slightly moved. Three absolute Holy Lands. Xiling and Nanfan's faces were filled with nervousness. Previously, Shi Tai and the other two supreme beings came to ask questions, but they came back without you. Now has the three ultimate Holy Land come again? How many people came? They have been following Li Fan and don't know anything about the outside world. Two girls, Shi Tai and Tai Ming, died and went crazy last time. This triggered the fury of the Sanzhu Holy Land. They launched a holy war against Senior Li. At this time, Supreme Yuanyang took the initiative to send a message to the two of them. Hearing this, Xiling and Nanfan were immediately shocked. The last two supreme beings, one died and the other went crazy. They looked at Li Fan in disbelief. Last time, Li Fan didn't go out at all. He just wrote a plaque in the courtyard and played a song. At that time, Tai Ming directly transformed into Taoism, so they didn't know. It turns out that he is actually dead. Senior Li's methods are indeed unimaginable. At the same time, they were also extremely surprised. Holy War. They are also people from the Holy Land, so they know exactly what this means. This is a sign of perseverance. This means that the entire Sanzhu Holy Land will make all-out efforts and use the strength of the entire sect to come and fight. How can this be? Xiling was in a daze. The Holy War, the three ultimate Holy Land, is about to end. Nanfan was very sober and murmured. The Holy Land, in the entire Xiantian realm, naturally exists in the clouds. It can be said to be invincible. Once a holy war is launched, only the Holy Land can possibly stop it. No one has ever dared to touch the wrath of the Holy Land. However, that is aimed at other people in Xiantian realm, other forces. Now, the target of their holy war is actually Senior Li. Crazy. Senior Li is a figure who can kill the demon lord with just one painting, and even the quasi-immortals and the holy masters of the two major holy places in the southern region have to come to see him. Just now, Senior Li gave him a chance, and he already had an immortal and two quasi-immortals. Not to mention the Sanju Holy Land, even if the Sanju immortal came in person. She couldn't imagine it. When everyone was surprised, Li Fan was also a little surprised. That Literary and Art Lovers Association is here again? So unwilling to give up? However, he could understand that beauties like Ziling and Nanfeng would be hotspots in any similar group and would be competed for. I don't know how many people were watching, how could Li Fan snatch it away so easily? This so-called three ultimate holy land is really annoying. He couldn't help but speak. This time it happened twice, I don't know when it will end. Hearing this, the brows of Supreme Ling Chao and Supreme Yuanyang jumped instantly. Senior Li actually said such words. Annoying. Being disliked by others is not important. The important thing is that people like Senior Li are disliked. They all understood in an instant that the three ultimate holy land was really in danger this time. Zhang Shui said directly, Senior, did this junior drive away these flies for you? Li Fan thought for a while. Zhang Shui, Ling Chao, and others, after all, had some family business in the outside world. They might have wider connections and things like that, and it might be easier to deal with them. Mainly, he didn't bother to deal with these people. Li Fan then said, okay, then it's time to work. Li really doesn't want to see these people anymore. Zhang Shui's face was calm, she bowed deeply to Li Fan, then turned and left. Supreme Ling Chao and Supreme Yuanyang looked at each other, and their eyes became more solemn. What Senior Li said is that he never wants to see him again. What does that mean? This means giving the Sanju Holy Land a death sentence. Even if it is a holy land, it cannot be saved. Senior, let's go and take a look. We will definitely not let those little ones come to disturb your Kingxiu again. The two of them spoke immediately. They had just received a great favor from Senior Li, and now it was time for them to repay the favor. Although the three absolute holy lands may be just a matter of waving their hands in front of the senior, the most important thing for them is to show their attitude. Li Fan said, okay. The two quasi-immortals immediately turned and left. Out of the courtyard gate. This time the Sanju Holy Land is really looking for death, let's go. The Ling Chao Supreme spoke, and the two of them turned into a rainbow light. Dozens of miles away. It's already a confrontation between two armies. The big flag of the three absolute holy lands buzzed in the air. Fellow Taoists from the two holy places of Taiyan and Xiang, why bother blocking our sex path? A supreme being from the Sanju Holy Land spoke. But on the opposite side, Luo Ming and Hong Xian led the coalition forces and coldly blocked the way. This road is blocked. Luo Ming responded coldly. Chang Sunli and Chang came out and said calmly, I am an old acquaintance with Taoist brother Ling Chao and Taoist brother Yuanyang. This time I personally led the troops to take revenge. I believe they will give me this face. I'm sorry to bother you all, make way. There was a hint of superiority in his words. As the holy master of the great holy land of Zhongzhou, his cultivation level is close to that of a quasi-immortal. He does not take ordinary supreme beings seriously at all. I can't afford your face. At this time, there were cold shouts in the sky. The next moment, two rainbow lights flashed, and Ling Chao and Yuanyang appeared in front of the formation. Luo Ming and Hong Xian breathed a sigh of relief when they saw the two holy masters arriving. Two Taoist brothers, long time no see. Chang Sunli and Chang spoke calmly and said, the two supreme beings of our holy land were killed in the southern territory, so they launched a holy war to avenge the despicable people who harmed the people. The two Taoist brothers won't stop them, right? Ling Chao's face was cold as he said, who is your Taoist brother? Taoist Xuanhuan was even more direct and said in a deep voice, for the sake of our acquaintance, I would like to advise you that all the supreme beings should abandon their cultivation and kneel down to apologize. Perhaps, you can still save a trace of the roots of the three ultimate holy land. Hearing this, the eldest grandson Lian Chen narrowed his eyes, his heart sank, and he sneered, so, that Xiao person who harmed the two supreme beings in my holy land has a close relationship with the two Taoist brothers. Or maybe the two Taoist brothers want to occupy the immortal weapon left by my ancestor of the three ultimate holy land. He asked loudly. He knew very well in his heart that there was no one worthy of the two holy lands to withstand the wrath of the holy war of the three ultimate holy lands. You must know that even if they can withstand this situation, the Holy Land will be severely weakened and even unable to recover. Therefore, there should be only one reason why these two people stopped themselves. That is the magical weapon that seeks to seize the three absolute Holy Lands. Maybe, the immortal weapon in their Holy Land has fallen into their hands. Thinking of this, a murderous intention had already arisen in his heart. Hearing this, Holy Lord Lingqiao shook his head and said, "You are really stubborn. You have disrespected that senior 3 times. You can't blame us for destroying your holy land." Holy Master Xuanhuan said coldly, "Chang Sun Lian Cheng, you may be plotting to seize the immortal weapon or intending to ascend the immortal platform, but you should never use that senior as an excuse. You have already committed an unforgivable crime in this world." The two of them looked cold. Hearing this, Chang Sun Lianquan's heart skipped a beat. These two holy masters actually called that person, senior. Who can they call their seniors? Could it be that there are some terrifying old immortals in the southern territory? However, this thought only existed in his mind for a moment. No matter who they are, no one can stop their purpose this time. Haha, opening your mouth is like destroying our Sanju holy land. You too, what are you going to destroy? His aura surged. The overwhelming pressure spread out. Almost quasi-immortal. Feeling this powerful aura, Ling Qiao and Xuanhuan couldn't help but said, "No wonder you are so mad and crazy. It turns out that you are close to a quasi-immortal and are in urgent need of that piano and that pen. Good." Chang Sun Lian Chen was dancing wildly, looking down at everything. "I have become a quasi-immortal, in the Xiantian realm, who is my enemy? Invincible power. Arrogant." Ling Qiao shook his head, and the next moment, his breath was released directly. The terror was like the wild clouds filling the sky, which directly forced Chang Sun Lianquan's aura to roll back. "No." Chang Sun Lianquan was shocked and dumbfounded, saying, "Quasi-immortal? Yes, thanks to that senior's gift, I have become a quasi-immortal." Ling Qiao spoke coldly. Xuanhuan sneered and said, "Sorry, I have just broken through to the quasi-immortal realm." After he finished speaking, he released his breath, and a breath as terrifying as Ling Qiao's was instantly rolled out overwhelmingly. Chang Sun Lianquan was forced back 100 steps by these two terrifying auras. The army behind him retreated in panic for a moment, and their formation was in chaos. Quasi-immortal. 2 statues. In the Xiantian realm where immortals cannot leave, the quasi-immortal is the supreme master. Chang Sun Lianquan is close to the quasi-immortal, and his strength can already be proud of the world. However, who would have thought that 2 real quasi-immortals would appear in the southern region? This is too scary. How is this possible? How can you be quasi-immortals? How can you be quasi-immortals? Chang Sun Lianquan was extremely unwilling to accept it. He couldn't believe it and didn't want to believe it. He is clearly the strongest among the holy lords in the world. Zhongzhou is the place where cultivators are the most powerful in the world. Southern region? Although there are holy places, their foundation has always been weaker than those in Zhongzhou. Who would have thought that 2 supreme beings who were supposed to be far weaker than themselves would actually become quasi-immortals? This gap is too big. Moreover, he remembered that these two people said that their quasi-immortal strength came from the gift of that senior. At this moment, he suddenly felt trembling in his heart. He didn't dare to doubt that person's existence at all. There is no need for these two quasi-immortals to lie. And what kind of strength should be able to cultivate two quasi-immortals? A living immortal? This is too scary. Kick the iron plate, really kick the iron plate. But, how could there be immortals in this world? Unbelievable. Did you know that the two girls, Nan Feng and Zi Yiling, have already won the favor of the senior and accepted him as his disciples? Yuan Yang Supreme said coldly, "What an immortal fate this is, even I would envy you. Her future achievements will definitely be higher than those of immortals. If you know better, you can take care of them in the future. It's enough for you to use the three ultimate holy land for a lifetime." In the end, you did the opposite. To label two promising disciples as traitors shows no respect for that senior. A good hand of cards, but played so poorly. All I can say is that your three ultimate holy lands must be destroyed. He shook his head, feeling a little regretful. Hearing this, everyone in the three absolute holy lands was shocked. No, no. Chang Sunli and Cheng spoke repeatedly, and he felt extremely uncomfortable. I have been planning my whole life, could it be that I have to fall short in the end? Even after so many calculations, he ended up harming himself? Harmed the Sanju Holy Land? He doesn't believe it. I don't believe it. Today, if I stand in the way of God, I will kill God, and if I stand in the way of Buddha, I will kill Buddha. He roared and took out a pen from his arms. It was a simple writing brush with an air of immortality. Immortal weapon. Ling Chao and the two were surprised. It's just a little short of becoming an immortal weapon. Even if you two are quasi-immortals, you can't stop me today. Chang Sunli and Cheng roared angrily. He was holding a writing brush and his breath was guaranteed. He was actually stronger than Ling Chao and the other two. Kill! He roared. The army of the three ultimate holy land was instantly ready to charge. The war breaks out. However, at this moment, a slender jade hand suddenly appeared from the sky, carrying the aura of a fairy spirit. With one finger, it cut off the sky. The tens of thousands of troops in the Sanju Holy Land all knelt down in an instant, feeling the extremely terrifying pressure. One finger can crush thousands of people. Chang Sunli and Cheng was shocked. His strength has now surpassed that of a quasi-immortal, but he felt great terror. When that finger fell, he actually felt that he could not resist it. No. He tried his best, and all his magical powers burst out at this moment, so brilliant that they were almost immortal. He rose into the night and killed that slender hand. However, those slender hands were just a flick of the jade fingers. In an instant, no matter how brilliant the light is, it will eventually dissipate, and no matter how terrifying the aura is, it will be annihilated in an instant. Chang Sunli and Cheng fell from the sky like a withered leaf. Bang! He smashed directly into the ground below, causing the earth to explode and sand and gravel to fly. For a moment, everyone was dumbfounded. Everyone in front of the two armies was shocked. Is this the power of an immortal? A natural mode is a natural mode. Even if Chang Sunli and Cheng is very close to the immortal, he is just an ant in front of the immortal's finger. Ridiculous ants. In the sky, immortal Zhang Shui has appeared. She is high above, scanning the field indifferently. She is spotless and as cold as ice, making people look up to her. For this kind of people, just kill them, why bother making so many noises? She said this to Ling Chao and Yuan Yang. Hearing this, Ling Chao and Yuan Yang immediately laughed bitterly. They were tough enough, but in the eyes of the immortals, they were still too weak. Senior said that the sect does not need to exist in the world. This person's cultivation has been abolished. The next thing is left to you. Zhang Shui spoke calmly. Ling Chao and Yuan Yang immediately bowed deeply and said, "We understand." Seeing the immortal appear, everyone in the scene was already extremely shocked, but her words now made everyone stunned again. The moment she appeared, many people subconsciously felt that she might be the senior behind Ling Chao and Yuan Yang. But now, she actually came under the order of that senior. This majestic immortal is actually not the person behind the scenes, but just doing things for him. God, what kind of existence is that senior? Everyone in the Sanju Holy Land was even more stunned. What kind of bad luck is this? What kind of scary person did he offend? At this moment, Ling Chao and Yuan Yang looked indifferently at the people of the Sanju Holy Land opposite, who were so frightened by the power of the immortal that they were all kneeling on the ground. They said coldly, "Grant the Sanju Holy Land to perish." They waved their hands. The army rushes to kill. This is a massacre. Fight. For the continuation of the Holy Land, kill. The Holy Land must not be insulted. The 6 supreme beings of the Sanju Holy Land were all rushing forward with the intention of dying. However, they were too weak. Ling Chao and Yuan Yang just waved their hands, and they vomited blood on the spot, and their cultivation was completely ruined. The quasi-immortal is crushing the supreme, just like the immortal against the immortal. Is our Sanju Holy Land going to perish today? No, the Holy Land cannot be destroyed. Life or death, where is the patriarch? Countless people from the Sanju Holy Land shouted, they roared. The Xuanhuan sect went on an expedition to the southern region, but ended up being destroyed. How can you accept it? Cannot accept. But the slaughter is spreading. Without the power at the top, the army of the Sanju Holy Land was like a herd of slaughtered cattle and sheep. Below, on the earth, Chang Sun Lian Chang crawled out of the pit with difficulty. His mouth was full of blood. In an instant, his hair was all white. He was old and skinny, like an old man who was about to die. Once his cultivation is ruined, his life has come to an end. He raised his eyes with difficulty and looked high into the sky. Sadness in eyes. My Sanju Holy Land cannot be destroyed, it cannot be destroyed in my hands. I cannot become a sinner in the Sanju Holy Land. He shed tears and held the cracked pen in his hand. Lian Cheng, the eldest grandson of the 9th Holy Lord of the Sanju Holy Land, begs the patriarch to come and protect my holy land. He spit out the last mouthful of blood. Summon with essence and blood. In an instant, the pen suddenly exploded and turned into powder. A ray of light flew out from it and directly hit the sky. A terrifying aura filled the air with this light. It was a gorgeous fairy light, and in the fairy light, a figure slowly appeared. He carries a yaokan on his back, carries a paintbrush in his hand, and is dressed in Tsingyi. He is a man of unparalleled splendor. After ascending for thousands of years, will the inheritance left in the lower world be destroyed by others in the end? The man murmured, and then glanced towards the field. He appeared in the sky, and suddenly the battlefield became silent. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 49. The brush, which was almost an immortal weapon, exploded and the immortal light transformed into a man. The moment the man appeared in the sky, everyone was shocked. Because, from this man, everyone felt an aura similar to Zhang Shui's. Immortal. Everyone gasped. Is this the Sanju Immortal? Unexpectedly, Sanju Immortal actually left a clone in that pen. No wonder the grade of that pen is close to that of an immortal weapon. The appearance of the Sanju Immortal is definitely the biggest backup force in the entire Sanju Holy Land. With him here, the Sanju Holy Land may not be destroyed. Everyone spoke one after another. But everyone in the 3 ultimate Holy Land felt relaxed at this moment. Just now, in the opposite camp, there was an immortal and two quasi-immortals, which made all of them extremely depressed. They couldn't even display their basic strength and could only be slaughtered. Now, they have all returned to normal, and their spiritual power is flowing even more briskly. Ancestor. The Patriarch has finally appeared. With the Patriarch here, who can destroy my Sanju Holy Land? The Patriarch will always be there, and the three absolute holy lands will always be there. Everyone in the Sanju Holy Land was filled with tears and extremely excited. In despair, the appearance of the Sanju immortal clone gave them all hope. Haha, my ancestor is here, who can destroy my sect? Who dares to destroy my sect? On the ground below, Chang Sunli and Cheng also laughed wildly. His life had come to an end and he was holding on with his last breath. Three absolute immortals. The two holy lords Ling Chao and Yuan Yang had serious expressions on their faces at this moment. Throughout the ages, Sanju is definitely the most amazingly talented person. His talents throughout his life cannot be compared to those of many other powerful men who have attained enlightenment and become immortals. Now, Sanju has appeared. At the scene, only Zhang Shui had to remain calm. She looked at Sanju, shook her head, and said, "For what happened today, the real body is useless, let alone a clone." Hearing this, Sanju Immortal smiled. His aura was ethereal and out of the dust, which was indeed extraordinary. Looking at Zhang Shui, there was a hint of admiration in his eyes, and he said, "I never thought that thousands of years after I stepped into the immortal realm, someone else would prove the truth and become an immortal. Finally, I would not be so lonely. It's just, why do you want to be so cruel?" There was a hint of doubt in his eyes. Zhang Shui pointed to the eldest grandson Lian Cheng below and said, "He has brought great disaster to the Sanju Holy Land." When Sanju Immortal heard this, he immediately glanced at Chang Sun Lian Cheng. Just a glance. Chang Sun Lian Cheng suddenly felt that he had been completely seen through. Before the gaze of his ancestor, he had no secret at all. He was in a daze for a moment, his mind numb. The next moment, Sanju Immortal withdrew his gaze. "I see." Sanju Immortal sighed slightly and said, "I originally wanted to leave these two immortal weapons in the human world, waiting for fate, but I didn't expect that they would cause such a big disturbance." He looked at Zhang Shui and said, "I'm very curious, what is the origin of the person behind you?" Zhang Shui said calmly, "You and I are not qualified to ask about its origins." The Sanju Immortal smiled dumbly. "My real body is in the immortal realm, so I have made a breakthrough. Even if a strong man from the immortal realm descends to earth, he may not be qualified to say this." After saying that, he took one step forward. Taking one step forward, two rays of fairy light suddenly shot out from his eyes. He looked at the small mountain village dozens of miles away. This is the eye of the fairy spirit, which can see through all illusions. His gaze penetrated the void like two divine swords. "You dare!" Holy Lord Ling Chao and Holy Lord Yuan Yang both roared. "How dare you directly spy on Senior Li's whereabouts? This is a great disrespect to Senior. Fairy Zhang Shui, please stop him." Holy Master Yuan Yang knew very well that the two quasi-immortals were no match for the clones of the three ultimate immortals. Only Zhang Shui of the same level could take action. However, Zhang Shui shook her head and said, "No need. If Senior Li had had the intention, he would have been dead the moment he appeared. Senior Li allowed him to live. I believe that Senior Li had his own intentions. Don't forget, Senior Li's two disciples, in a sense, still have a close relationship with Sanju Immortal." Hearing this, Holy Master Ling Chao and Holy Master Yuan Yang suddenly realized. Yes. They couldn't help but admire, is this the immortal's opinion? Sure enough, it is definitely beyond their reach. And at this moment, in Li Fan's small courtyard, the song you just played is much better, but there are 17 parts in total. After all, it was disturbed by the worldly world, so there is still noise. Li Fan is instructing Nanfan to play the piano. After getting the piano left by the Sanju immortal, Nanfan couldn't wait to try it. Get up and listen to me play. Nanfan stood up, while Li Fan sat down and sang calmly. Start with the song. The sound of the piano is clear and clear, like an exquisite fairy sounding softly above the nine heavens. He didn't know that at this moment, two eyes from dozens of miles away were looking towards him. Dozens of miles away, the eyes of Sanju Immortal finally landed on the small courtyard through the clouds and fog. However, when he saw clearly which small courtyard it was, he saw 4 words on the wooden door of the small courtyard. Wuorxianting. The Sanju Immortal was stunned for a moment. His original elegant temperament suddenly disappeared at this moment, and his whole person was trembling faintly. How is this possible? Wuorxianting, every stroke is a Dao's way, 4 words, clearly 4 worlds. His face looked horrified. At this moment, he felt the faint sound of the piano coming from the small courtyard. Jueshan Qin. He murmured that he could never be more familiar with this piano. However, the sound of the piano was something he had never heard before. Every note seems to have wings on the avenue. Every pluck of the strings is like a chant from the 9 heavens. This sound made his heart surge instantly. At the scene, everyone was looking at the Sanju Immortal, anxious and waiting. However, the Sanju Immortal seemed to be petrified at this moment, lost his mind, and had forgotten himself. He stared in that direction as if he was crazy. A long time later. The Sanju Immortal just came back to his senses. He had already withdrew his gaze, and the sound of the piano in the small courtyard had already stopped. Ancestor, take revenge for us. Below, Chang Sunli and Chen knelt on the ground and cried out sadly, the Sanju Holy Land has never been so humiliated. It is even more disrespectful to you. You must not condone it. Countless people in the Sanju Holy Land also spoke in unison. Master, please take action. Master, please take action. However, at this moment, there was a hint of self-mockery on the face of Sanju Immortal. Take action? Who in the world is qualified to take action against this senior? He sighed and said. Only now can we know what the true Dao is. It's a pity that after thousands of years of practice, it's just like mud. After finishing speaking, he suddenly knelt down. Go in the direction of that small mountain village and kneel down to salute. A great gift to bow down to the ground. Seeing this scene, everyone present was instantly shocked. Incredible, stunned. What's happening here? The majestic 3 wonders of immortals actually knelt down to worship others at this moment. How can this be? Moreover, that should clearly be the enemy. The other party accepted Nanfeng and Ziling as disciples, and also made the 2 supreme beings die and go crazy. Now the 3 ultimate holy land is almost destroyed because of this. But the patriarch is kneeling down to worship him. Everyone in the 3 ultimate holy land is in a mess, completely messed up. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 50. The Sanju Immortal knelt down to salute and worshipped in the direction of the small mountain village. This shocked everyone. Sanju Immortal, is he crazy? A generation of immortals just took one look at the mountain village and was so frightened that they knelt down. How is this going? People in Taiyan Holy Land and Xiang Holy Land were shocked and couldn't understand. What on earth did he see? Ling Chao and Holy Master Yuan Yang were also shocked. It is his honor to be able to kneel down and worship Senior Li. Zhang Shui spoke calmly and said. If he were here in person and could see him at a glance, his moral conduct would immediately reach a higher level. Hearing this, everyone had complicated expressions. Is that senior actually so terrifying? And a group of people in the Sanju Holy Land were dumbfounded. The three-Ju patriarch is the last foundation and backup force of their three-Ju holy land. For them, Sanju immortal is their belief and their god. The entire Sanju holy land is following the footsteps of Sanju immortal, hoping to one day recreate the glory of Sanju immortal. But now, their faith, their gods, are bowing down to their enemies. At this moment, countless supreme and Taoist hearts were broken. Countless disciples of the three absolute holy lands have lost their mentality. Completely collapsed. Below. When Chang Sun Lian Cheng saw this scene, he collapsed on the ground, his eyes empty. What kind of existence did I provoke to the three ultimate holy land? It's over. This time, it's really over. Neither heaven nor earth can be redeemed. The stunningly talented Sanju immortal kneeled down and worshipped an unknown being without any scruples in front of thousands of people. It wasn't until the salute was completed that he stood up slowly, his face full of emotion. He looked at Zhang Shui and said, "Senior, do you have any instructions for this offense to the Sanju Holy Land?" Zhang Shui said calmly, he said that he never wants to see the three ultimate Holy Land again. The Sanju immortal nodded, his face very calm, and there was no trace of emotion at all. He turned around and looked at the thousands of three-Ju Holy Land troops. "You have received my inheritance and have achieved today's cultivation. Of course, it's precisely because of this that you got into such a big disaster. I can't tolerate you, there is no one in the world who can tolerate you. I'm going to do it, so you still have a chance to be reincarnated. This is my last kindness to you. Sanju immortal spoke calmly, as if he was describing an insignificant matter. After finishing speaking, he suddenly waved his hand. In an instant, the immortal hurricane rolled up. Like knives, it enveloped the entire holy war army in the Sanju Holy Land. No. Master, have mercy on me, Master, have mercy on me. We are innocent, we are innocent. The people in Sanju Holy Land are crying and howling at this moment. The Supreme Being knelt down, Mahayana prostrate, weeping bitterly. Who would have thought that in the end, they would die at the hands of their ancestor? This is unacceptable. However, no one can resist, no one can stop it. The Supreme is disintegrated. The Mahayana period exploded into blood mist. The Dongxu realm died one by one. Even the people in Taiyan Holy Land and Xiang Holy Land opposite were a little frightened when they saw this scene. Is this the method of immortals? With a wave of his hand, the army died in pieces. Not even ants. With a wave of his hand, everything disappeared. The three ultimate Holy Land army, which had previously been so fierce and aggressive from Zhongzhou to the southern territory and attracted the attention of the world, seemed as if it had never appeared before. On the ground, Chang Sun Lian Cheng was kneeling on the ground, looking at the scenes in the sky, his whole body looked haggard. His heart is completely dead. I was wrong, I was wrong. He mourned in silence. It was so wrong, and the price was too high. The next moment, the eyes of Sanju Immortal fell on him. Everything started because of your greed. Every stroke of the piano was originally reserved for me to be destined, but you didn't know what to do and led the whole sect into this way. You will never be reincarnated. Sanju Immortal waved his hand. Chang Sun Lian Cheng completely evaporated. The soul has been refined into nothingness. From now on, there will no longer be any trace of Chang Sun Lian Cheng in the world, not even a drop of blood or a piece of flesh. The three ultimate holy lands have been completely destroyed. The figure of Sanju Immortal at this moment has also faded somewhat. He is just a clone, and the time he has left is limited. He turned to look at Zhang Shui and said, "Please tell Zi Ling and Nanfeng that from today on, as long as they are willing, they will be the masters of the three ultimate holy lands. All the treasures buried under the Sanju holy ground belong to them." Zhang Shui nodded and said, "I will." Hearing this, Sanju Immortal smiled happily. Fortunately, Xiling and Nanfeng are still there, right? He looked back, glanced at this magnificent mountain and river, and said, "It's a pity that I was born in the wrong era and didn't have the opportunity to study with such a peerless master. Life is full of regrets." His figure immediately disappeared. The three ultimate immortals no longer exist in this world. Seeing this scene, everyone had complicated expressions. Witnessed the destruction of a holy place. Moreover, he perished in the hands of his ancestor. Who could have imagined this? And all this is because of that senior's words. The coalition forces were silent. Even people who have never heard the news before now understand it completely. In the southern region, in the small mountain village dozens of miles ahead, there must be a terrifying existence living in seclusion. It can make the immortals bow their heads, and it can make the Holy Land perish. That's a forbidden area. A supreme murmured in a low voice. I feel that the entire Xiantian realm is about to change. What kind of existence is this? From beginning to end, it has never appeared in front of the world once, but the whole world has changed dramatically because of it. No one can't help but sigh. Holy Lord Ling Chao and Holy Lord Yuan Yang were both sighing. A major force that dominated Zhongzhou was completely destroyed. Destroyed so completely. Fairy Zhang Shui, it's time for us to leave. Immediately afterwards, they spoke to Zhang Shui. Now that the general trend has been decided, too many things have happened before and after, and the two holy places are in urgent need of rest. Go ahead. Zhang Shui nodded and said, remember what the senior said, what happened on the immortal platform this time is just the beginning. Senior has given us immortal fate, and it will never be for us to eat. The chess pieces must have the function of chess pieces, otherwise, they will only become abandoned pieces. After she finished speaking, she took a step forward and her figure disappeared from the place. Ling Chao and Yuan Yang both smiled bitterly. So naked. Peace. Fairy Zhang Shui is right. But after thinking about it, both of them felt that there was nothing unacceptable. Yes, compared to sects like Sanju Holy Land, being able to become Senior Li's chess piece can be regarded as the merit of our ancestors. Holy Master Yuan Yang smiled and said, let's go. If such a big thing happens, the entire Xiantian realm will pay attention. Senior Li likes to live a mortal life and doesn't like to be disturbed. We have to think about how to explain it to the outside world. Immediately, the coalition forces from the two holy places started to move. They left. At the same time, in a vast cloud. In front, the black and yellow air filled the air, and it seemed to be the center of the entire world, where no one could step in. Several beings in black robes were sitting cross-legged on the clouds, staring somewhere. In the dark and yellow air, it seemed like there was a tree in a trance. The world tree in this world is basically rooted in the southern territory. Zhang Xian has already gone there. He will use the Kangli Mountains and the sex climbing platforms in the immortal domain to avoid the protection of the world tree and kill all the powerful people. In this way, the foundation of world tree will be shaken. According to the time, it should be almost now. We should take action. At the same time, destroy the roots of each domain, and the world tree will appear on its own. At that time, it will be our chance to obtain this tree. The leader, a man in black robe, spoke coldly. Behind him, a group of men in black robes all nodded. Immediately, everyone dispersed. Soon. Xiantian Realm, Northern Territory. A huge Taoist palace. In front of the Dao Palace, there is a huge basalt stone. On the basalt stone, there are two big characters Ye shining brightly. Baikan. Baikan Holy Land. One of the great holy places in the Northern Territory. Boom. Above the sky, a giant hand suddenly fell. Like the hand of God, rolling up endless spiritual power, the sky trembles. Thousands of rays of light shot out from the Dao Palace, and all the immortal level mountain protecting formations were activated. Who dares to sneak attack on my Baikan holy land? There was a loud shout in the Taoist palace. At the same time, several supreme beings, holding quasi-immortal weapons from the Holy Land, rushed out of the sky above the Dao Palace and tried their best to block that palm. However, that giant palm came and destroyed everything. Bang bang bang. Several supreme beings holding quasi-immortal weapons were directly blown into pieces, and the quasi-immortal weapons all broke and fell. The big palm came down with a bang, and the immortal level magic circle was overwhelmed and collapsed. Boom! With a loud noise, the entire magnificent Taoist palace was turned into ruins. On this day, Baikan Holy Land was destroyed. Donghuang. An ancient aristocratic family was built on the bank of a surging river. The river was like a dragon, protecting this lineage. From God, give me a hint. In an instant, the ancient family was horrified. All the cultivators felt something and went out to look up. A strong enemy is coming. A powerful voice immediately sounded, and the 9 supreme beings flew into the sky. Who, immortal, wants to deal with my Xuanhuan family? The head of the family roared, and the 9 people worked together. Suddenly, all the water in the surging river that surrounded the family flew up and turned into a terrifying yellow dragon, charging towards the finger in the sky. However, everything was just an illusion. The giant yellow dragon was directly destroyed with a single finger. The dragon spirit died immediately. Tens of millions of tons of surging river water suddenly fell from the sky, drowning the entire ancient family. No. How could an immortal level dragon spirit not be able to withstand even one finger? Everyone shouted that the ancient family had turned into purgatory at this moment. Countless people are running away and screaming. Western Desert. The ancient Zen temple stands under the blue sky and white clouds, like the holiest place in the world. In front of the Zen temple, sincere believers kowtow step by step and come to make pilgrimages. Laiyan Temple, more than one immortal level Buddha has walked out of here. The incense is booming. However, today, a black hurricane suddenly swept from the desert, carrying millions of tons of yellow sand, and pointed directly at Laiyan Temple. On the road leading to Laiyan Temple, countless devout believers were directly swallowed up by the strong wind. When the big bell of the temple rang directly, the old monk who had been sitting in the hall for hundreds of years suddenly opened his eyes and said, "Demon." Countless monks are gathering at this moment. The black hurricane is finally approaching. Nearly 10,000 monks suddenly chanted together, like the Sanskrit music from the west. In the main hall, the 3 bodhisattvas worshipped by the world suddenly opened their eyes. The golden body seemed to come to life and appeared in front of Laiyan Temple. The 3 of them formed a formation to stop the black hurricane. These are 3 immortal level golden bodies, widely worshipped by the world, and their strength is terrifying. However, when the black hurricane came, the 3 golden bodies and the entire Laiyan Temple were buried under the earth. Millions of tons of yellow sand fell, and the entire Laiyan Temple disappeared. It's like it never existed in this world. Northern Territory. Donghuang. Western Desert. At the same time, the Xiantian realm suffered a huge disaster. On this day, the entire land and sky of Xiantian realm suddenly experienced strange phenomena. The earth cracked for thousands of feet for no reason, as if it was about to be destroyed, and blood rained from the sky. The whole world is shocked.